Hi folks, I'm doing the weekly overview a day earlier than normal. Normally I do it on Sundays or Mondays, but it's been a second since I did a video. Usually I'd like to do videos once every 2 days, but the nature of the astrology of this past week was such. After the full moon, I told you that generally speaking, the astrology of the week, the windows open, windy, it's beautiful outside. Finally, it has been so warm that it's lovely to sort of experience the breeze. And of course, I'm saying this right now, and then you will see me get irritated that the background is sort of blowing all over the place, and I'm gonna get up and close the window. So, let's place money on just how many minutes into this video I'm gonna end up doing that and get irritated. I'd covered everything that I felt that I needed to cover for this week in the last weekly overview I did, so I didn't want to just forcibly keep doing videos, to be perfectly honest with you. There wasn't necessarily that much more to say other than we'd had that darn full moon in Aquarius that I think gave us all a good shake, and we've had this last week too. And as I said, right after the full moon, the energy, all of a sudden, it's like everything's building with Mars and Jupiter conjuncting and squaring Saturn, and then Venus opposing Saturn and squaring Jupiter and Mars, and the new moon and the full moon in Aquarius opposing retrograde Mercury and squaring Uranus, and all that happened by the day of the full moon. And then after that, it was just like relatively placid. We're still in Mercury retrograde and productive, hopefully for you. It certainly has been, fortunately for me, in terms of whatever it is that I've been trying to do. The one quick part of housekeeping, the 30-minute single topic readings that I am doing, I'm going to continue to do in that current guise. Well, Mercury goes direct on August the 28th, so let's just say I'm going to continue to do it while Mercury is still in its shadow period till about September 11th, and then I might change things around. So if that is something, I think that in its current guise, I may make it primarily a Mercury retrograde offering. Wouldn't that be fun? Every Mercury retrograde to have this kind of Mercury retrograde special or something like that. I think I might toy with either adjusting the price a bit during the irrespective. I'll figure it out, and whatever it is. But in its current guise, it's still active. If you would like, my thanks to people who have availed of it. I certainly have learned a lot from doing them, and I've enjoyed meeting, as is true, meeting people who are watching the videos. And yeah, it's taught me certain things from a business perspective, because there's been a certain volume to them, as a result of which things that I have not had to do before, I have seriously had to think about. Do I what is my philosophy towards cancellations? Do I refund? Do I, it's not been an extreme issue, but every now and then a few things have come up for me that have never come up before. Anyway, bottom line is this. Let's focus on the week to come. My regular readings are, of course, my regular readings, but the single topic or question or area of focus readings for 30 minutes for $50 are currently active through, let's just say through September the 11th. And then beyond that, I'll figure out what to change or what to modify or not, or whatever it is. But for now, we'll keep it at that. So if you would like to avail of them, I'll put a link to the video I did on them at the end of this video. It's like a few videos ago. You can search my list of videos. And then you're welcome to reach out to me at the email address below as well, whether you're interested in a normal reading or that one. Okay, so that is out. Well, this week, astrologically, this coming week is probably one of my favorite weeks, but not quite for the reason that you would think I would say that, because one would think that I would say that more because there's some amazing astrological aspects this week. It's not so much that as much as it's an astrologically rich week coming up. And I'm talking about the week of the 26th of August to September the 1st. Specifically, because the astrology is actually, I would use the word meaningful. Now, isn't that a loaded word? Aren't you all just rolling your eyes at me? There's really 3 events. Well, let's just say that there are 4 events that are occurring. One is that on September the 2nd, this is the easiest one. On September the 2nd, we're going to have a new moon in Virgo. Much awaited, much kind of, granted, it's not on September the 1st, which is what this video is about, until the week September the 1st, but the Monday after September the 1st, we have a new moon in Virgo. And by the time that new moon occurs, Mercury will be direct, moving slowly but direct. And it provides our portal into another 2.5, 2 3/4 months of forward movement, and enters what I've been calling sort of the birth canal that takes us to the end of the first week of June of next year. I'm going to talk briefly about that in next week's weekly overview. I've certainly already covered that ground in videos. Even recently, I did a video on an overview of September to the end of the first week of June. So if you're interested in that, I'll place a link to that at the end of this video. You can look at that for that context. But this week, why that's this coming week, this week that this weekly overview is about, why this is relevant, and that's the week starting the 26th, 2 days from now, it's not that far, 26th, is that as we head to next weekend, as we head past Wednesday, Thursday, expect your energy to dip. Do your best to be as productive as you need to, but by the time you get to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, particularly Saturday, Sunday of next week, conveniently over the weekend, you may find that you are psychologically releasing the last month, emotionally releasing, astrologically releasing the last month, and preparing for the new month inaugurated by the new moon in Virgo, the new Virgo month starting September the 2nd. So energetically, we are moving into a week where, as the week goes on, our productivity and our ability to be productive might become compromised by feelings of fatigue, spacing out, even a sense of depression and hope. Just never underestimate what happens to your mood emotionally when the moon goes dark and is not visible in the sky, so it's barely visible in the sky. So by the time you get to Friday, Saturday, Sunday of this week, be prepared that you might start to feel a little bit low, a little hopeless, a little bit, but also just know that once the new moon occurs, the wind starts to come back into your sails again. Okay, so that's point number 1. Point number 2, probably the most important thing that is happening this week, is that on Wednesday, on August the 28th, Mercury goes direct. That is certainly something that I am going to need to, that is where I'm going to be spending about half of this video. The other half is going to be spent on certain aspects that primarily Venus is making. Venus is a prime mover this month in the sign of Virgo. Specifically, the aspects of this week, which is something that we typically start with, right? On the 27th is the first aspect this week when Venus trines Uranus. Venus transiting Virgo trines Uranus in Taurus. The very next day, Venus opposes Neptune on the 28th. That's the same day that Mercury goes direct. So on the 27th, Venus trines Uranus, Venus in Virgo, Uranus in Taurus. On the 28th, Venus in Virgo opposes Neptune in Pisces, and Mercury goes direct in Leo. And the day after that, on the 29th of August, Venus enters the sign of Libra and trines Pluto in Aquarius. So Venus in Libra just enters Libra and trines Pluto in Aquarius. That's it for this week in terms of aspects. 27th, Venus trines Uranus. 28th, Venus opposes Neptune and Mercury goes direct. 29th, Venus enters Libra and trines Pluto. Now, I will say that on September the 1st, we have a couple of important things occurring. Pluto, retrograde, enters the sign of Capricorn, and Uranus goes retrograde in Taurus. I don't feel a especially strong need to talk about Uranus going retrograde, because Uranus is one of these slow-moving planets like Pluto, where direct, retrograde, direct, retrograde, direct, retrograde, direct, retrograde, except just say that if you have Uranus retrograde in your birth chart, it might be the Uranus retrograde periods where you feel Uranus's attempts to carve out and put you into your very individual, your very own path, your authentic path in the Taurus part of the chart. You may feel that pull more strongly when Uranus is retrograde, if you have Uranus retrograde in your birth chart. That's all I really feel the need to say about that. The slower moving planets, by the time we get to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, you know, direct, retrograde, etc. The important thing for me, even with a planet like Saturn, is the planet direct or retrograde in your natal chart? Depending on what it is, that same phase of the planet in the skies as they transit the skies are what may impact you most with regard to the energy that they're trying to create, the change and the transformation they're trying to create for you in the part of the chart that they're transiting. So in the Taurus part of your chart, if you have Uranus retrograde in your birth chart, then it might be the Uranus retrograde time period where you can really feel Uranus trying to transform things in the Taurus part of the chart into a path and to manifesting something that is specifically authentic to you. It may not be conventional, but it is going to be what is right for you. On September the 2nd, which is not quite the scope of this video, a direct Mercury trines Chiron, and Mars in Gemini squares Neptune in Pisces. Okay. And then, of course, on the 2nd, of course, we have the new moon in Virgo. Let's talk about the scope of this video, because I have a feeling that I'm not going to wait till, you know what, let me cover all of that in this video. Let's take this video to September the 2nd, because energetically that's what we're looking at. So the aspects we're looking at. On the 27th, Venus trines Uranus. On the 28th, Venus opposes Neptune and Mercury goes direct. On the 29th, Venus enters Libra and trines Pluto. On September the 1st, Uranus goes retrograde. Pluto enters Capricorn for a couple of months. And then after that, Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for the next, 17, 18 years. And then on the 2nd, on the day of the Virgo new moon, which will be a separate video, Mercury trines Chiron and Mars squares Neptune. All of a sudden, we have a lot to cover. But as far as this coming week is concerned, when I said there were 3 other things, apart from the fact that the moon was going to get darker as it headed towards the new moon, there's the Mercury going direct on Wednesday, the 28th, there's the Venus aspects, and I did want to talk about just briefly Uranus and Pluto, Uranus going retrograde, Pluto and Capricorn, but we're going to add to that discussion Mercury trining Chiron and Mars squaring Neptune, because we should cover it now, because especially with Mars, in a couple of days time, in 2 or 3 days time, we're going to start to feel that Mars Neptune square start to build, and it is a biggish deal. It is a biggish deal. Now, Mercury goes direct on the 28th, guys. If you were to say, why, Abhi, did you say that this was an interesting week for you, or one of your favorite weeks astrologically, it's 2 things. One is that Mercury goes direct. And I find Mercury retrograde periods immensely meaningful, sometimes soberingly meaningful. But the other reason why I find this week really fascinating is that the aspects that Venus makes, trining Uranus, opposing Neptune, trining Pluto, are echoes for me, precursors to what is going to happen around the time of the September 17th full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. Because at that time, the full moon lunar eclipse is going to be conjunct Neptune in Pisces, but the sun is going to be making the same aspects that Venus is going to be making this week. Opposing Neptune, and of course opposing the moon to create the full moon lunar eclipse. but also trining Uranus and trining Pluto. Now, if you're an astrologer like I am and a little geeky about this stuff, then your ears really perk up around stuff like this. And there's something about this week that calls for us to all get into observation mode. With Mercury going direct, number one, this particular week that is coming up as we head towards the 25th, 26th onwards, certainly one can say Monday through Friday. If you want to make it Sunday through Saturday, you're welcome to. A certain amount of flow of communication and transactions, particularly related to the houses occupied by the signs of Virgo and Gemini in your chart, may slow down. And if you go back to the first week of August 1st to about August 7th, the few days before and after Mercury went retrograde on August the 4th and when Mercury was stationary, I don't know if you felt it, but it was very clear for me that all of a sudden it was as if a certain amount of communication and transactions and Mercury-related things just stopped. It was like a silence. And then after the 7th, as Mercury started to pick up speed, the flow started again. And I expect that as we head into this week, some of the volume of communications might get dialed down. Not a bad thing as long as you're ready and are equipped to deal with matters relating to the Virgo and Gemini parts of your chart. If you're ready to, if you can accommodate that slowdown. And in general, the fact that the communications and a certain energy related to transactions and communication slows down doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could actually feel a little bit like a vacation. It could feel like it's time to go ahead and focus on some other things that you've been trying to get to but haven't been able to because over the last week and a half, the volume of communication has picked up. It's fine as long as you're not relying on that communication to make you content or happy or satisfy you in some way. So you've just got to adjust to the fact that things may slow down in terms of communication and transactions, particularly related to the Mercury-ruled houses in your chart over the next week, number one. Number two, Mercury retrograde mundane logistical stuff may show up in interesting ways this week. If you have lost bags or you have something has been misplaced or some issue has been going on, it might show signs of resolution all of a sudden as Mercury goes direct by Friday or over the weekend or into early next week. The day, especially the day Mercury is stationary, the 28th, 27th, 28th, 29th, really be patient if you are hit by some sort of Mercury stationary shenanigans, delays, technology breakdowns, communication breakdowns, misunderstandings over the phone, miscommunications in general. In general, this week, there might be a sense that we don't have the information we need, information is not being translated correctly. A certain amount of frustration may enter the picture as the planet of communication and cognition just kind of comes to a halt before he starts to go direct and starts to move forward again. By the weekend, he is moving forward. By the new moon in Virgo, he is moving forward a little slowly, but we like a direct Mercury moving forward, not stationary, ruling that new moon. So September may start to show some signs of momentum, not as fast as October or November, but great. We'll deal with that as part of the new moon in Virgo video. The biggest thing to be in observation of, there's one more thing I want to say. Sometimes when Mercury is getting to go direct, we can reach a certain type of closure around the items that Mercury has been trying to give us a reality check about. Ground us about. This is what's really real. This is what's really might be going on. When I say it's time to be in observation mode. Part of the reason why it's time to be in observation and reflection mode, because being in a lot of communication, I don't know how that's going to go for anybody this week. Although you might find that you start to get some messages or messaging around certain things that had kind of stopped and are starting to move forward or showing signs of moving forward, especially as you head towards Friday, Saturday, Sunday, around that time. It's time to be in observation mode to reflect on what is it that this Mercury retrograde has made real for you and has clarified for you. Where have you gone back to the drawing board to say, I entered August thinking this was the priority and this is how I would move forward and this is what I would do and this is what I would get done and this would be my timeline. What role did the days before and after August the 4th play in that process? And the entire Mercury retrograde from August 4th to 28th, what did it present to you that made you realize, oh, I was thinking this was going to go like this, but in fact, this is what seems real, and this is what I need to build my future on now. I've covered this ground a lot in my recent videos. Which eggs do I continue to put, which baskets do I continue to put my eggs in? Which baskets do I take my eggs out of? What does it mean for my future path, goals, how I'm moving forward? How do I integrate what Mercury retrograde has made clear to me? Now, if you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart and you're finding by the end of this week, you might be confirmed about your plans moving forward, decisive, and you might be in a place by the end of next week, beginning of the new moon in Virgo, in execution mode, because you are likely to have been more decisive and clearer about what you want to have happen and what your priorities are and how you want to move forward. If you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, you may have really revised your plans or realized that you can't commit to or count on certain things or a certain thing that you entered August with, and that plans have changed. Certain things have to be factored in before you can move forward. A reality check, a fact check. These are the facts. This is what's actually going on. This is what is real. This is what you can build on or not. And some of the communication for people who have Mercury direct in the birth chart might have been garbled or confusing. As you head to August the 28th, you have got to pay attention to what, this is the thing about being in observation mode. How is any lack of flow of communication and transactions this week affecting you? Are you able to put your feet up, or does it feel like you actually have to get into some kind of action to compensate for it? Number one. Number two, it's a temporary thing, because by the time we get to September 2nd onwards, the flow will start up again. The flow will start up again. Whatever the first week of August was like, the rest of August was not like that. So the last week of August may have a similar feeling to the first week of August in terms of pace, but we'll recover from it. It will feel inconvenient. Number two, what comes up this week that dots the I and crosses the T as far as Mercury retrograde is concerned? Is there any conversation that started up or came up around August the 4th that resurrects itself around August the 28th? Are there any key or salient things that occurred while Mercury was retrograde that come up around August the 28th, or maybe even as you enter into next weekend, in a way that seems clearer or more comfortable to act on? Or here it is again. Remember, if you committed to something while Mercury was retrograde, in and of itself, it may not have been a bad thing. And I'm talking about people who have Mercury direct in their birth charts here. If you committed to something while Mercury was retrograde and you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, I would hazard to say that you might be able to rely on those plans certain things may get tweaked because you might start doing the execution of those plans after September the 2nd, come across people who have Mercury direct in their birth chart. So certain plans, but ultimately the direction and what is important to you and what you've been decisive around sticks. For those of us who have Mercury direct in our birth charts, something you may have committed to while Mercury was retrograde in and of itself does not have to be a bad thing as long as the details were clear, might get revised in some way as Mercury goes direct. We were thinking this, but now we're thinking this. And you're going to have to determine what that means for you. Again, in and of itself, it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It might come with a certain amount of temporary inconvenience because you thought things were going to roll out a certain way and you had plans and it made sense and everything held together based on what was shared. It could be that it is as Mercury goes direct and gathers speed that you actually see, based on the revised plans, something coming to fruition. If it is a dramatic we thought we're going to be doing this job, we're going to redefine it entirely and we're going to call it something else and it's going to be reporting to someone else, and if it's that big and if it doesn't work for you, then you're going to have to determine if there's something about that you're going to want to do. Does it change so dramatically that it changes your commitment to what it is that you committed to? Sometimes things that we commit to or something that comes through while Mercury is retrograde can be a bit of a lifeline out of a situation that Mercury retrograde is telling us is not as permanent as we thought it was when we entered it. So you're going to have to determine which category it sits in. Did you take something while Mercury was retrograde because it got you out of a situation that Mercury retrograde made clear to you was not for you? If so, the fact that certain facts about it might change after Mercury goes direct will be a temporary inconvenience, but may ultimately, as you head into October, November, and the next Mercury retrograde into Thanksgiving, give you results. But the details may change. If you've committed to something while Mercury was retrograde, and the details change so much after Mercury goes direct that it feels unrecognizable and not something you want to commit to, then you're going to have to determine what you want to do about it. But I would be in observation mode around what comes up that helps you to dot the I and cross the T related to this Mercury retrograde period. What are you emerging? All the logistical crap aside, and there has been logistical stuff, there's been technology stuff, there's been all sorts of Mercury retrograde, and this week it will continue and indeed intensify as we head towards Wednesday, and maybe even for about 48 hours after Wednesday. But what closure is the stationary Mercury and Mercury going direct going to provide? Some of that closure will come by the end of this week, over the weekend. Some of it may continue while Mercury goes through the shadow degrees through September the 11th or so. I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again. I feel that it's important enough to be, as I said, be in observation mode. What is this week going to bring? The second reason to be in observation mode, I almost feel like I want to talk to each of you and say, so what did Mercury retrograde make clear to you? Do you have Mercury retrograde in your birth chart? Where were you decisive? What decisions have you made? And if you have Mercury direct in your birth chart, what is, I can feel myself belaboring the point just to kind of drive the point home. And I can't do that for you since this is a general reading and I'm just, you've got to kind of say, okay, I'll take this week to try and figure out. It's not just integrating the lessons and articulating them, although that will help. It's also being in observation mode because some things may come up over the next 5 days that feel like, in a week where we're expecting a slowdown in communications related to the Virgo and the Gemini part of the chart and a slowdown in communications in general, the communications that do occur are going to echo loudly. And it'll be curious to see, Oh, there was that phone call around August the 4th that I ignored. Is it going to come up again around August the 28th? Oh, here's what I think became clear during this period as Mercury goes direct. Is he going to emphasize I've gone reverse, Mercury says, I've reversed over these degrees, and just as I go direct, just to make sure that you are clear about why I went retrograde, one more time, here's my message. Don't be in denial about this. Here's what's real. And typically what Mercury gives us will have us thinking, oh my God, what was I building all this stuff on? It was like on pillars of sand. Now, sometimes we don't know that those pillars are made of sand. And sometimes we realize that a certain amount of forward movement and planning and assumptions, we were kind of making assumptions about where things are. But again, you want Mercury to go direct. You want to gather some momentum. You want the information. For those of us who have Mercury direct in our birth chart, you want that data to become clearer as we head into early September. But what happens this week, be in observation mode to see what it is that comes up. My number one favorite reason for why astrologically I'm excited about this week, however messy it might get for anybody, including myself, I want to be alert to what, ironically, clarity or Mercury retrograde is going to provide for me, so that when I go into September, October, I am real and clear about what I need to be real and clear about and build my future plans during the months of forward movement, September, October, into the middle of November, the first 3 weeks of November, on more solid, reliable ground. Also, one thing to be aware of, did something come up as a decision or something decisive while Mercury was retrograde that when Mercury goes direct, resurrects itself? Was there some offer or something, or this I've already covered, that came up while Mercury was retrograde that kind of goes the other observation mode, my darlings? The second thing to be in observation mode, the second thing that I'm actually excited about as an astrologer this week, is this strange set of, not strange, but it is strange in the sequence. Day after day after day, Venus makes these important aspects, but you barely have time for any of it to register, because in between two glorious trines, there's the opposition to Neptune. At around the same time that Mars is getting ready to square Neptune. Let's talk about the positive trines first. On the 27th, Venus in Virgo trines Uranus. This is lovely. What opportunity, relationship, financial, artistic, anything, what opening, what gift, what blessing is Venus giving us in the Virgo part of the chart that supports Uranus trying to make us move forward in a way that is authentic to us in the Taurus part of the chart? Lovely. There's flow there. Venus could be bringing an opportunity that looks directly to Uranus and says, I'm going to hand this off to you. I'm going to create an opening in the Virgo part of the chart that Uranus can then capitalize on and say, all right, this is the direction we get to go in. This is something we get to capitalize on, move towards, for you to identify and carve out the path that is right for you in the Taurus part of the chart. 2 days later, when Venus enters Libra, she runs into Pluto harmoniously, a trine. What is she creating in the Virgo part of the chart that helps Pluto create the transformation? He is getting ready to finish up in the Capricorn part of the chart, but also has been starting up in the Aquarius part of the chart. By the time the Sun trines Pluto, the Sun will be in Virgo and Pluto will be in Capricorn by the time we get to September 17th. But what groundwork, what opportunity is Venus presenting to us as this week progresses? that the sun gets to shed his light on as we get to September the 17th. And then Mercury comes in after that to do the same thing, to kind of seal the deal through communications. So be in observation mode around what, during a week where a certain amount of flow might slow down, what comes up that could be an opportunity for you, financially, creatively, that supports Uranus's transit in Taurus and Pluto's transit in Aquarius, but also supports, Pluto is in the very first degree of Aquarius in retrograde. And he's going to move into, he's in Aquarius, but, the orb is also very present in Capricorn. We're getting ready with Pluto, getting ready to move back into Capricorn for a couple of months through November, for Pluto to finish up a transit through Capricorn that Pluto has been making since 2008. What has Pluto been trying to transform for you in the Capricorn part of the chart since 2008? You have got to now lean into it, understand what that transformation is, and help Pluto make it happen, so that Pluto doesn't land you with some sort of transformation that forces you to make it happen. I'm going to have to do a separate video on this just to drive this point home. I have done at least 2 or 3 videos on Pluto in Capricorn, just to kind of drive this point home. So you can search for Abi, Pluto, Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto in Aquarius, and these points are made over and over again. Pluto has been going through Capricorn since 2008, transforming the Capricorn part of your chart for your best interest. And Pluto now comes back into Capricorn for 2 months to finish up that transit. Our understanding of what Pluto has been transforming in the Capricorn part of our chart for our benefit, and for us to help Pluto wrap it up, will be a huge help and as you cannot ignore Pluto's transformations. And if you complete them and you lean into them and you accept them and you understand and accept what your path is and what is right for you and what is not for you and what needs to be changed and adjusted, it can make all the difference between alignment and fulfillment and health and not. So Pluto enters Capricorn next Sunday. But Venus trining Pluto, I don't want to put too fine a point on Venus being, Venus will be in Libra and the trine will occur in Aquarius. Fine. Something, again, an opportunity that Venus is creating this week, blessing us with. Is it an opportunity that has been building since August the 4th while Venus has been in Virgo the entire time? Is it something new that comes up? Is it something that resurrects itself related to Mercury's own going retrograde and direct? Something that was in discussion prior to August the 4th comes back again. Something that felt like was going a certain way while Mercury was retrograde comes back again. A clearer direction on it might emerge as we move past September 2nd. You might feel more comfortable with making commitments as you head into the weekend and after September 2nd. Understandably, you may or may not have a choice. Mercury's still stationary, but Venus is creating this gorgeous trine, these 2 trines. Something about the opportunity that Venus is creating, though, that can contribute to the right direction in the Taurus part of the chart and Plutonian transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart, to be literal. Something about that opportunity might need to serve Neptune in the Pisces part of the chart. Hear me on this. Neptune is the planet that has either been asking in the Pisces part of the chart since 2012 whether you want to move towards a more spiritual or artistic direction in the Pisces part of the chart, or whether Neptune has been creating losses for you by dissolving attachments, often through dealing with a certain amount of shadiness. Now, If Neptune is transiting your first house, or say you're a Pisces rising or you're an Aquarius rising, it could be you that have been a little bit on the cards close to the chest side, so that others are seeing you and perceiving you as the somewhat shady one, the not quite completely honest one. If you're an Aquarius rising, some of Neptune in the second house could also mean that there's a fogginess in your way of thinking about your finances and your income and your sense of self-worth that Saturn is now trying to heal. That's a really important point for Aquarius rising folks. But for some people, what I've been referring to as the crisis in Pisces, the crisis in the Pisces part of the chart, Neptune is the prime mover in that. And whatever opportunity Venus is creating the Virgo part of the chart may well need to serve it in some way. This is going to be a very personal interpretation for each of you, depending on which house is occupied by Virgo and Pisces in your chart. Does Venus in Virgo create a potentially financial opportunity as you look ahead that is going to bear fruit in such a way that it might help manage a certain amount of... There's a need to keep an eye out for whatever it is that Venus is doing this week, and to know how, when, and where to protect the flame. If it is serving a spiritual or an artistic purpose, great. If it is serving to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, great. But be careful to not let it just strike the balance between something that is a portal and an opportunity. You know what? It's gonna, an opportunity is gonna come up, and it might give you awareness again of what to be careful of in the Pisces part of the chart. Where's the leak? Where's the deception? Where's the gaslighting? Where's the potential for loss? And by the time the sun comes around, at the time of the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, echoing back to the week before and after July the 17th, you're going to have an awareness around what the opportunity is and what it is that needs to be protected and guarded based on all the experience you've had. And by the time Mercury comes around to make those trines of that opposition, you're going to be in a place where you could potentially seal the deal on something and ensure that it is done in such a way that a certain kind of loss is prevented. And here's the thing. What Venus is trying to do in the Virgo part of the chart I'm trying to find the words to explain this. The way to serve Neptune is to understand what Neptune is saying is not for you in the Pisces part of your chart. Neptune tries to drive home the message that we come in with nothing and we leave with nothing. And there can be things that we are attached to Neptune, by forcing us to renounce certain things, brings us closer to who or what or where our source is, or source in general is. And the way for Venus in Virgo and the opportunity that has been created, it could be something that you feel is the seed of something that is personal to you, that could grow in such a way that it somehow compensates for whatever you feel may have been lost or is in the process of being lost in the Pisces part of your chart. Now, if it is something artistic, creative, it could be supporting Neptune, trying to get you to become artistic or creative in the Pisces part of your chart. Just experiment with this idea that whatever opportunity Venus is bringing, that becomes really, you become really kind of spiritually conscious of and aware in a very private but totally knowing manner by September the 17th, that then the planet of communication, Mercury, is then going to kind of put some energy around. When does Mercury, I can feel you guys asking me this question, when does Mercury trine Uranus and oppose Neptune? Shall we look at those dates? Shall we do one of these? Abby gets on the internet to look at some dates. Whatever that is, either is going to support Neptune by virtue of giving you something to build on that compensates for the loss that Neptune has been creating through the crisis in Pisces since 2012 that peaked in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and you feel like you need to guard it accordingly. Build on it, capitalize on it accordingly. One area to be in observation mode is around Mercury going direct. One area to be in observation mode is, what is it that Venus is working on this week? Because whatever she's working on, the sun picks up on as we head to the September 17th eclipse, and then Mercury picks up on from a communication and maybe a contractual perspective. Mercury opposite Neptune. Let me just look at that, because it's all going to happen around that date. Oh, creaky Mercury. I don't want to say anything to jinx whatever's happening technically. I know that some of what again, this is the challenge with a general reading. You're trying to cover the 2 or 3 primary interpretations that a particular aspect is making. So I'm hoping that you're getting something out of what I'm saying. It is a week to be in observation mode. It is a week to understand and prepare that as you head to the end of the week, you're going to have to recoup your energy. September 2nd, the new month is going to start. The moon is going to get dark by the end of the week. Uranus will go retrograde, but more importantly, Pluto by Sunday will come into Capricorn, asking you over the next couple of months to dot the I, cross the T. Clearly my favorite phrase in this video, in the Capricorn part of the chart where Pluto has been making his transformation since 2008. A direct Mercury will get ready to make his 2 primary aspects that he's made 3 times. Trining Chiron in Aries while he is in Leo, which will happen on Monday the 2nd, the day of the new moon. And by the way, Mercury just retrograde trined Chiron yesterday. Retrograde Mercury trined Chiron when he was direct. Retrograde, he just trined Chiron yesterday. He's going to go direct on the 28th, and he's going to trine Chiron on September the 2nd. Then as he moves ahead, he's going to square Uranus. And then September the 9th, he's going to enter Virgo. And he's going to clear the first 4 degrees of Virgo, which he spent days in early August. In 2 days. And by September 11th, he will clear the shadow degrees. Mercury trining Chiron, something in our cognitive ability. We may get the opportunity. We may have been actively in a process from the Leo part of the chart to the Aries part of the chart, coming back to ourselves in some way, getting empowered in some way, healing something we separated from in childhood. In the process of healing something that even takes us back to the solar eclipse on April the 8th, which was conjunct Chiron. Something may occur from a communication perspective that really makes us feel like, as this week develops, particularly the second half of this week, we feel like, you know what, I've got a handle on my own compass in the Aries part of the chart. I am moving so much further in healing in that part of the chart, and my ability to communicate from a place of being more complete in the Aries part of the chart. There's something about Mercury trining Chiron 3 times that is allowing us, through the process of missteps and miscommunications and misunderstandings and second guessing ourselves while Mercury has been retrograde since August the 4th, to be in a place by the September the 2nd where we're like, this is what this retrograde Mercury has taught me about how I operate, about those things that get me spinning. And as I head to September 2nd, I have the ability or the chance to go ahead and act on something in a much more empowered and healed way. Mercury opposes Neptune on September 25th. So September 17th is the Sun. This makes sense because by the time we get to October the 2nd, October the 1st, Mercury and the Sun will conjunct. Again, it'll be the superior conjunction. So the Sun opposes Neptune, trines Uranus, trines Pluto around the time of the full moon on September 17th, and Mercury follows within a week to make those same aspects. Thanks for being patient while we do this together. Mercury trines Uranus. I'm being a little meticulous here. September 24th, the day before. September 24th trines Uranus. September 25th opposes Neptune. Let's take a guess. September 26th? September 26th trines Pluto. This week, be in observation mode about what Venus is doing, because as we get to September 17th and then September 25th, the Sun and then Mercury, respectively, will tread the same ground. Venus provides the opportunity and creates something of value. The Sun, as he comes and gets ready to make that eclipse, our inner awareness of the potential of something is just completely illuminated. And then Mercury comes in the back end of and says, let's seal whatever this is through communications and contracts. And for some of us, there is an opportunity associated with it. Something that I wonder if for some of us, this can help move us forward in the direction that we've been trying to move since April of last year. You know, when Venus opposes Neptune and Pisces and trines Uranus and trines Pluto, it's very emblematic of the energy of this time, where we've been saying that the expansiveness and the forward movement and the desire and the growth is symbolized by the Aries, where the North Node eclipses are, the Taurus, where Uranus is, the Gemini, where Jupiter is part of the chart, and the stabilization is needed in the Pisces part of the chart, where Saturn and Neptune are. And these upcoming sets of aspects, trine Uranus, oppose Neptune, trine Pluto. Trine Uranus, oppose Neptune, trine Pluto. Trine Uranus, oppose Neptune, trine Pluto. And Pluto from Capricorn has been supporting the transformation that he's been trying to make, has been supporting the Taurus part of the chart in Uranus. If anything, one could argue that Jupiter and Uranus, Jupiter was in Taurus from May of 23 to May 25th of 24. Actually, whatever changes they were trying to create in the Uranus part of the chart were trying to contribute to the transformation Pluto has been making in the Capricorn part of the chart since 2008. There's an opportunity there. And that opportunity can either be used to try and help stabilize something related to the Pisces part of the chart. If Neptune and Pisces has been trying to get you to move in a more creative direction, it could serve that. Or it could even act as a bit of an antidote, insofar as it's an opportunity that somehow helps you, is like a medicine or healing related to whatever it is that you feel is the loss that has been created in the Pisces part of the chart, maybe through, you know, the week before and after July the 17th, the Pisces part of the chart, Neptune Pisces, we're gonna start to feel its presence more and more as we head to the middle of September. And I don't think it's a very comfortable energy when you have a full moon eclipse conjuncting Neptune. I think whatever visibility was brought to us on something the week before and after July the 17th, it's going to be, that visibility is really going to be present as we head towards September the 17th. But I prefer the full moon lunar eclipse on September the 17th to the full moon that we just had a few days ago, last week. Because I love the fact that while that uncomfortable visibility is present with the conjunction to Neptune, we've also got the awareness of an opportunity that helps move us forward. The last thing I want to talk about, this is going to be a slightly longer video, I'm sorry, but I do need to cover it, and I'll cover it briefly, but I will do another video on this, is that on the 2nd, of course, we have Mars squaring Neptune. You know, this I might cover in greater detail when I do the new moon in Virgo video. But just remember, as planets have moved through Gemini, the personal planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, the new moon that occurred in Gemini, and now Mars, they would have trined Pluto, squared Saturn, trined the South Node, or actually trined Pluto, trined the South Node, squared Saturn, and squared Neptune. And the squares to Saturn and Neptune are what gave June that very uncomfortable, very interesting that Neptune in Pisces is kind of raising his head this week. Because the reason why I want to cover Mars in Gemini is just off of, as of last week, around the 14th, 15th of August, conjuncting Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter is ending a 12-13-year cycle, starting a 12-13-year cycle in Gemini, either trying to align you in a direction that you articulated, wished, hoped for when Jupiter was going over your 9th house the last time, or align you in the direction that was right for you if you are moving in a direction that is not right for you, or if you are in the right direction trying to kind of spiral it up, ending a 12-13-year cycle, starting a 12-13-year cycle. With the Mars-Jupiter conjunction, as I said last week, that ending and new beginning got accelerated, either because you put some energy behind creating an ending or a new beginning, or there was something that may have come up via conflict, competition, a need for you to feel like you needed to have stronger boundaries around something that made you lean into that transformation. Well, Mars, as it's getting ready to oppose Neptune, there's some action related to creating this new reality in the Gemini part of the chart, or pursuing certain goals related to the Gemini part of the chart, pursuing certain opportunities that will help you manage Neptune's energy in Pisces. Either you're, with Mars involved, it could also mean boundaries around anybody who is acting at cross purposes to you, either intentionally or unintentionally. Sometimes when we are pursuing goals, we encounter opposition from people who don't want to work towards something at the same speed as we want them to, or in the same direction entirely, or processing something, or something along those lines. This is a long video. I can feel sort of the heaviness of all the information I'm sharing in the video. Not heavy because, I mean heavy in terms of information that I'm sharing in this video. And I'm sorry, but it's just, it's a happening week. But one, as I said, having the ability to observe what is going on is going to pay dividends. With Mars going through Gemini, either building on the conjunction with Jupiter and moving towards creating a newer, fresher reality in the Gemini part of the chart, the house occupied by Gemini, will become necessary to either contribute to moving in a more artistic or spiritual direction, the Pisces part of the chart, or manage or combat the loss created by Neptune through deceptive or gaslighting means. Something about Mars taking action in Gemini helps you get clearer. It's a similar theme to the Venus opposition with Neptune. Taking action towards pursuing certain goals in the Gemini part of the chart, or setting boundaries in the Gemini part of the chart, will help protect the opportunities, for example, that are being created by Venus in the Virgo part of the chart, or in general, any opportunities that are coming up in such a way that it counterbalances the loss that is potentially created or could be created in the Pisces part of the chart. Mars square Neptune is very much either taking action towards spiritual artistic goals in the Pisces part of the chart, or becoming very aware of boundaries that need to be in place related to subjects, themes related to the Gemini part of the chart. You know, it just adds to the soup. The primary aspects this week, yes, the moon is getting darker, but the primary ones are Mercury going direct and being stationary on Wednesday, and Venus trining Uranus, opposing Neptune, trining Pluto. Yes, by the end of the week, Pluto enters Capricorn, fine, and Uranus goes retrograde, fine. Yes, the day of the new moon, Mercury trines Chiron, great. It'd be lovely to feel like we are learning lessons and incorporating lessons and becoming more empowered and healing some part of ourselves related to the Aries part of the chart as we head towards Monday. Great. But then you factor Mars squaring Neptune into the equation, and it adds to the kind of minestrone feeling of the throw everything into the stockpot feeling of this week, because you're going to feel that Mars-Neptune square really in a couple of days, more and more and more as you head to the end. Somewhere you're really going to have an awareness of, what do I need to do in the Gemini part of the chart that is going to, as I said, either contribute to, if in the Pisces part of the chart you've been trying to move to a more spiritual or artistic direction, it'll contribute to that. If you feel like you've been dealing with some aspect of loss in the Neptune part of the chart, the Pisces part of the chart, you may feel like, I need to have my boundaries in place. And by having the boundaries in place, I contribute to Jupiter creating the endings and the new beginnings in the Gemini part of the chart. If you have been the one who has been either a little foggy or Neptunian in the way that you've been approaching life or approaching relationships or playing your cards close to the chest, then just be a little aware that this Mars-Neptune square in the Gemini part of your chart, you may be taking some actions that nudge you towards greater clarity. If you're Aquarius rising and you've been a little vague about your finances or your sense of self-worth, then something related to your fifth house could come up in such a way, pursuing a certain goal, setting a certain boundary that is going to force you to address self-worth issues or financial or income issues. And I don't care if that sounds esoteric, I'll put money on that. If I was talking to you and you were Aquarius rising, we would get it to the bottom of that. So just you know, it's a general, just kind of take that into account. The Mars-Neptune square, the squares, listen, Mars squared Saturn, conjuncted Jupiter, and squaring Neptune. By the time we get to the 6th, 7th, 8th of September, Mars will enter Cancer, the sign of Cancer. And from the sign of Cancer, he's going to trine Saturn and trine Neptune 3 times. So am I overly concerned about the square to Neptune? No. But Mars squaring Saturn and Neptune are still big enough energetically that I think they're worth spending a little bit of time on. And I'll spend more time on them. I'm going to think about, as this week progresses, what videos I want to do. I'm clearly going to be doing a new moon in Virgo video. I wonder if I need to do a reminder on Pluto going into Capricorn. I might consider doing that. And I might look at Mars square Neptune in a little bit greater detail. But the bulk, I think, of what we need to know to be in observation mode for this week is in this video. There's a lot. So let me just distill it down. Mercury slowing down, getting stationary on August the 28th, going direct. Venus in Virgo, trining Uranus, opposing Neptune, trining Pluto. If everything else feels overwhelming to you to consider that I've said in this video, just focus on those 2 parts of this video. Mercury going direct, the logistical challenges associated with that, the communication and transactional slowdown in the Gemini and Virgo part of the chart, and also closing out the Mercury retrograde experience by driving home what we need to integrate and go back to the drawing board on. And remember, some of what Mercury retrograde makes us get real about can often be very sobering and even disappointing, because we've been moving forward assuming that something has potential in the future, and Mercury retrograde says, no, you don't. It doesn't. Here's what's real. Factor this in. Change of plans. Go back to the drawing board. There could be something, if there have been conversations also that come up in a different, I'm hoping that if there were conversations that were occurring while Mercury was retrograde, that they come up more the week after September 1st, so that the energy is clear. But something around them might come. This is what I'm saying about being in observation mode. What is closing itself out as Mercury goes direct? And number 2, what is the opportunity, financial, relationship-wise, blessing, Venusian, that Venus is bringing, has brought in the Virgo part of the chart, that allows you to move in the direction that is right for you in the Taurus part of the chart, allows you to transform something in the Aquarius part of the chart, and either contributes to the artistic, spiritual direction that Neptune might have been taking you in the Pisces part of the chart, or counters what Neptune is asking you to renounce by giving you something of value. In a more extreme case, if you're not careful of protecting this Venusian opportunity, you could find it somehow, you need to protect it. With Neptune, what you don't want Neptune to do is to why am I being polite? What you don't want Neptune to do is to steal it. You don't want those forces that have been duplicitous. I've been saying to you all along that there's a direction that we are trying to move towards, that we have not been able to get to since April of last year, but there are stops and starts and stops and starts, and they continue till the end of the first week of June of next year. Aries, Taurus part of our chart, now the Gemini part of the chart as well. But we have to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart. So whatever opportunities are coming up that Venus brings this week, that the sun brings awareness to as we head to the full moon lunar eclipse on the 17th, that Mercury puts something around. What I just said about where the opportunities are, how you can get there, and what you need to protect and what you need to stabilize holds true. That is the lens through which to look at it. One more possible scenario is that something that Venus brings could be asked to serve. If Venus brings a financial opportunity or a job or a blessing, it could be that you have an awareness that while it takes you on a path that is right and singular for you in the Taurus part of the chart and helps with the transformation in the Aquarius Capricorn part of the chart, you may also feel like what it is bringing you could help you, could give you resources and opportunities that help you stabilize the Pisces part of the chart by healing, solving a nebulous situation in the Pisces part of the chart that Neptune has created, by giving you something to use in order to do that. So if Neptune since 2012, but particularly peaking in 2014, 15, 16, 17, has made your ability to handle matters related to the Pisces part of the chart really difficult because it's felt like I can't concretely do that, Saturn's presence since March 2023 will certainly help, and has been helping stabilize and get real about what needs to be done and start to put some structured plans around it. And this Venusian opportunity may feel like, oh, this could be a way to continue to help Saturn stabilize what needs to be stabilized in the Pisces part of the chart. This could be an answer, a solution amongst many that can be applied. This solution can both move me forward towards desired goals and give me something that helps me manage the Pisces part of the chart. All right, my darlings, that is the weekly overview for this week. It's a lot, but if you want to focus on 2 sets of energies out of the 5 or 6 that I've mentioned, it's Mercury stationary going direct and Venus trining Uranus opposing Neptune trining Pluto would be the 2 that I would focus on. The rest will kind of adjust around it, and I'll try to get to it. If you're interested in me reading your birth chart, then my email address is in the description box below. Keep in mind that I'm still doing the 30-minute single topic area focused readings, so you can use the email address to email me about either. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already, and if you find the content useful. Next to the subscribe button is a bell icon. Hover over that, there's a wiggly bell. You click on that wiggly bell, you'll be notified when I do new videos. There's a thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to the channel. Comment, like the video if you feel inclined. It helps the video get circulation on YouTube. Welcome to new subscribers. And yeah, if you feel like this content is useful to someone you might know, feel free to share the information about the channel or whatever with them as well. The sun sets in 15 minutes, and my face in this video looks like it's going to set in 15 minutes. Have a great week. Have a meaningful week. And for some of us, I hope that Venus does bring something that makes you go, And I can't tell whether it's something that Venus has been working on since August the 4th, or, because she's in Virgo, something about Venus's transit is impacted by the fact that the ruling planet of Virgo has been in retrograde and is stationary and going direct. I have a feeling that whatever it is that Venus is working on might become clearer as we head into September and into October, which would make sense with the sun getting ready to make these transits September 17th and Mercury around September 25th. But this is why I said, astrologically, I'm fascinated by this week, and I feel like the solution to it is very much, as I said, being in observation mode. You're going to be called upon to act. Either the slowdowns are going to make you want to get in action to compensate for the slowdowns because they're making you uncomfortable for some reason, or in the relative quiet, certain things may come up that really make you sit up and go, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this? What is it telling me? Is it a confirmation of what Mercury retrograde has been telling me? Am I resisting what Mercury has asked me to get real about? Is Mercury, as he's getting ready to leave, kind of driving a point home? Is something that I thought was going a certain way while Mercury was retrograde, is it going to go a slightly different way? You may not know that on the 28th. Some of that might get clear by the 2nd. Some of that might get clear the first couple of weeks of September. Observation mode. An exciting week for an astrologer. A potentially challenging week for the rest of us to try and sort of integrate and get clarity on what it is that we need to do, to be perfectly fair. And for some of us with those Venus transits, who knows what she brings? All right, enough said. Until the next video that I do. Really, I'm getting eclipsed by the sunset now. Okay.